Hello, this is Rating Descending,
where we watch IMDb's Worst 250 so you don't have to.
My name is Abigail Ward.
And I'm Michelle St. Clair.
And tonight we are watching Elektra. Elektra the warrior survives a near-death experience, becomes an assassin for hire, and tries to protect her two latest targets, a single father and his young daughter, from a group of supernatural assassins. Let's watch.
Before getting into talking about our days, I wanted to offer our first correction.
Oh, I have so many corrections.
Okay, well then I would like to offer one correction. Shane Anderson from the Mighty Motion Picture Rangers podcast mentioned that Netflix still does DVD delivery service.
Oh, okay.
I did not know that. They don't even call it Netflix anymore. It's called DVD.com. But it's Netflix. It's owned by Netflix.
Yeah.
It's Netflix's home to DVD delivery.
There you go.
So Zoolander was only 80% wrong on... It's just weird that they still did it.
My corrections aren't from people. It's just corrections I am offering myself. Because when I listen back to the episodes, when you send them to me, I'm like, oh man, I misspoke here and I meant this person, not that person.
Well, good thing I always say everything perfectly.
A good thing you don't pick up on all of my mistakes. One of the big ones was that I was talking about Richard Griffiths playing Dumbledore, and I meant Richard Harris, not Richard Griffiths, who plays Uncle Vernon. There's a couple others, and I can't even remember them, to be honest.
Well, I wrote this one down, and then because it was only one, I just remembered it.
There you go. I feel like I get too excited and I just don't finish my actual thought, and then I don't finish my sentence on top of that.
Yeah, I mean, I did the same thing of getting overexcited. And re-listening to the podcast has been a really enlightening experience to find out how I speak, which often seems to be starting 3 sentences simultaneously and only following through on half of one of them.
And my speaking style is talking way too quickly and mumbling a lot over things and not enunciating things properly. It's been very eye-opening. And also, I just hate my voice. I hate listening to myself. God, you're such a doofus. And that's me talking to me.
Oh, I definitely thought that was directed
Abigail,
at me.
You did it again.
Yeah.
No, I listening to the podcast has really opened my eyes to how quickly and frantically I speak a lot of the time.
Well, since we're two people who don't like listening to our own voices, it's a good thing that we've decided to pursue an audio medium.
Yeah, good call. Good call. Every week I'm haunted by myself.
It'd be one thing if we had an audio engineer working for us and we could send it off into the void, but instead...
It has been really nice though, because I've been getting lots of nice messages from good friends saying that they're enjoying the podcast, and that's exactly why we wanted to make it as well, is just so friends could listen to it. We used to do Bad Movie Night back in Sydney, and we can't do that anymore, especially in lockdown, so this has been a really nice replacement for that, and getting messages from friends being like, I just listened to it so we can hear your voice, or so that it feels like Bad Movie Night is happening again, is really nice.
Just so sweet. I mean, last year I was hosting the Bad Movie Night more regularly instead of just whenever. But then I went back through my events on Facebook because it showed me a log of previous events, and it was literally all 50% D&D, and then every group event I ever organized was centered around watching a bad movie.
Yeah. So this is giving it a nice formula and structure again where we can't have that. But
this is our origin story.
I will say I love friends getting in touch about the podcast and how much they're enjoying it. That's so nice. We've gotten 2 big responses on my end of this podcast. The first was the pineapple lumps debacle, which I won't get into. Apparently I was wrong. But
nobody has emailed through their chew-based information.
Massive letdown, guys. Pull yourself together. The second big response that I've gotten was today, because we released the Jonah Hex episode, I got a bunch of messages saying, why do you ghost people? And I gotta say, my main response here, I'm just gonna say it right here, ghosting people can be sucky, and I don't think it makes me a bad person, but I'm certainly not proud of the fact that I do it. But on the other hand, I don't owe anybody my time unless they're a good friend or someone that I'm trying to follow up with. I have a deadline due. I get that. But if you're just some dude that I've talked to on Tinder for 2 weeks, I owe you nothing. So
yeah. I mean, I get the worry about it because, I mean, I'm someone who's very, very conscious of the fact that other people perceive me as a human being. And because of that, I get very, very anxious that people I don't talk to anymore will perceive me as that person. So I'm like, oh, I gotta be at 100% for everybody in my life. But I'm learning you kind of don't. You can just be you, and people are there or they aren't, and that's okay. That's an okay thing.
I honestly don't subscribe to the idea that we have to respond immediately to people, that we have to respond at all. Like, God, I should have been born 150 years ago when people sent off letters every 2 days. Because I can't keep up with people. I can't message back every half hour. It's not my deal. I don't like being constantly in contact with people. This year in particular, I've become really happy with my own space and doing my own thing. And at this point, like, I don't check my phone as often as I used to anymore either.
Yeah.
So I hate the idea of building up a relationship where you talk all the time nonstop with friends, with people I'm interested in. Like, if I like you, if I have a thing for you, I'm still not going to message you all the time. I don't want to do that.
Yeah. I got a new amp.
That's good.
Yeah, I got a new amp. It's a Vox AC15. I've wanted a legit guitar tube amp for years instead of just the shitty little... The original guitar amp I had was... I bought a $100 guitar from eBay, which was a Fider, which so clearly a knockoff, and it came with a 10-watt amp. So it wasn't even an amp I paid for. It was an amp that came with an already undermarket shitty guitar. So this one sounds way nicer.
It looks nicer too.
Yeah, I always loved the look of the Vox amps. Like, you always want to do the thing that is, it's got to sound good. It's got to be the right decision or whatever. But like, I don't know, with something like that, you can... Taking the look into consideration isn't a bad thing.
For sure.
Yeah, so I've just been like playing with that. I'm on the next step of the PlayStation.
Yeah, there's the update. That's what I'm looking for.
Oh, you just wanted the update on the PlayStation
I want
thing.
that pie, baby.
Yeah, well, I soldered the shutdown circuit today.
I love it when you solder.
I've never soldered anything before, and now I've soldered my own circuit.
It's so funny. I feel like our little like conversational pieces would be so much more interesting if we weren't in lockdown and had like the same 3 tasks that we enjoyed doing every day.
You've known me 4 years. You know that I would still be doing the same 3 tasks.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
So, Elektra, that's what we watched. I did a lot of research into it today to really prepare myself for this one. Straight off the bat, before I do the overview, I'm going to say it's not bad enough to be on this list. In my opinion, it's actually not bad enough. I think that there's a bit of politics around this one as to why it's on the bottom list. In my opinion, which might upset some Marvel dude bros, but that's my opinion. I thought watching Elektra, I didn't quite understand. It was bad, obviously. It was bad. It was boring. I think you and I both said it felt more like a drama than it did in a superhero film.
Yeah.
But I don't think it deserved to be that low. Like, I definitely feel like every other film we've watched so far has been worse than Elektra.
Yeah, I do think it's one of the best on this list for sure.
Yeah. I know we're only 8 in at this point, but I think this is the best out of the 8.
Yeah?
Yeah.
I got more joy out of some of the other ones, but I would put this in the same tier as like New Moon and Jonah Hex, where like it is god awful, but at least it's a semblance of a movie, and I had a fun time watching it as a bad movie.
Yeah, Jonah Hex was my favorite, but this was better than Jonah Hex. Most things are better than Jonah Hex. But yeah, I thought Jennifer Garner gave like a really decent performance. I thought some of the action sequences, there were some cool ideas in it.
There was cool ideas.
Yeah.
That was the thing that made me reluctant to agree with it doesn't deserve on this list, but you're right that it doesn't deserve, but this movie has more wasted potential than any of the other things.
It does have wasted potential, but I don't think it should be so crucified for it.
Yeah.
Like, Jennifer Garner gives a good performance. The cinematography is real decent. Her outfit is ridiculous, and some of the fight scenes are fun but silly. I think this is like a solid 5.8 on IMDb, you know, not a 4.7.
Yeah.
I've jumped the shark and I've already given you my rating, but
using our previous metric of 5 is a good year. It's a completely mediocre movie.
It's so in the neutral zone.
Yeah.
But yeah, so yeah, that's my thoughts on it. Did you think it was worth being where it is, or do you?
I mean, I think it's better than a lot. I've ranted before about how much I hated Meet the Blacks and how much I did not appreciate God is Dead. God's not dead.
Elektra was twice as good as Meet the Blacks. Twice as good as Zoolander 2.
Yeah.
And yet it's lower.
We've had this interesting arc where the movies at the very top of this list should be way lower. And then there's been this dramatic increase in quality as we've gotten further in.
A couple of people have asked if this list is political, if IMDb's rating system is political, if there's a particular demographic of users that sway the vote.
100%.
Yeah. Right now, we're telling you, yes, there's definitely a political sway to a lot of these votes. And we're really keen to get to the worst film on the list, which we won't tell you what it is. You can look it up. But we've had a look at the overview and we're wondering if it's there for a particular political reason rather than it being a bad movie.
I've said before, like, this is more than anything a macro study of IMDb's rating algorithm.
Yeah, this is our 4-year experiment.
The audience of people who rate on IMDb, as well as like something like New Moon, like whilst there's a lot of Twilight fans who would rate it high, there'd be a lot of people who would review bomb it for the same reason they would now review bomb Captain Marvel. It's something that's liked by teenage girls.
That's what I'm getting to. Funny you bring up Captain Marvel. So I'll do the overview. After being killed in Daredevil, Elektra Natchios is revived by blind martial arts master Stick. She's soon expelled from Stick's mentorship and becomes a contract killer. Years later, Elektra, wanting out of the game, is offered an unusually high-paid gig. She arrives to the location, waiting for the names of her targets. During the wait, she bonds with a girl, Abby, and her father, Mark, who are living nearby. She soon learns that he and Abby are who she's been hired to kill. Elektra spares them and leaves, but returns in time to protect them from assassins sent by the Hand, a crime syndicate of ninja mercenaries. Kurigi, son of the Master of the Hand, leads a new team of assassins to kill Elektra and return with Abby. Elektra tries to protect Mark and Abby, but is soon confronted by Kurigi and his gang. Typhoid, Stone, Kinku, and Tattoo. During the fight, Elektra realizes that Abby has martial arts skills. Stick saves them from the battle and takes them under his protection. He confirms that Abby is the Treasure, a martial arts prodigy whom the Hand seeks to use. Later, Elektra challenges Kurigi to a fight, the winner claiming Abby. Elektra returns to her childhood home to face Kurigi, and Abby joins her in the fight. The two defeat the forces of the Hand together. Elektra tells Abby to live a normal life and that they gave each other their lives back. Elektra leaves, hoping that Abby won't grow up to be like her. And that's the end.
You reading me that overview reminded me of how bad this movie is. I don't know if it would go as high as 5.8.
It is bad. It is bad.
It's not good.
No, it's not good. But I also don't think it's as bad as the other films. And I think what I'm about to get into, the political bias in this film, it is a female superhero-led film.
Yeah.
And it's the first one ever.
Oh, this was the first one.
The first.
I guess that makes sense.
Yeah. And it is a bad film, don't get me wrong, and it had a lot of repercussions for being bad. But I also think it gets extra flack because it's a female-led superhero film, because there was a lot of negative reviews coming, particularly from men. A lot of user reviews were men saying that they didn't like that she was a woman in a lead role.
Is this the thing that Amy says in Veep of, I don't want you to be president because you'll be a bad president, and people will say women suck as president?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. It's really tragic because obviously, again, it's a bad film. It was a bad start for female-led superhero films. But I still don't think it's as bad as IMDb has carved it out to be. There have been worse films so far.
Yeah.
And the reason it's funny that you brought up Captain Marvel is that a lot of people cite Captain Marvel and Wonder Woman really, as the first female superhero-led film. Sorry, superhero female-led film. And they always forget Elektra. Elektra is totally pushed aside.
Yeah.
And the funny thing is, when I started doing research into this film, what started making it so interesting is that I found out that because Elektra bombed, the CEO of Marvel refused to make any female-led superhero films for years.
I knew it!
For years.
Ah!
It's so upsetting.
Is that why there's no Black Widow movie?
Yes.
Ah!
Yeah.
That's so disappointing.
They were really hesitant to do any, Captain Marvel was a huge leap for them because once again, Elektra was still in the forefront of their minds, thinking that it would still be a flop.
And I stand by that movie. It was as good as Iron Man. I genuinely enjoyed it.
I haven't seen it, and big disclaimer for this episode: I'm not a superhero movie person. I haven't watched that many Marvel films. So I actually had to do some research into Elektra, who Elektra is, who she is with Daredevil, what happened in Daredevil.
Well, I've said to many people before, the only reason I watched all the Marvel movies is I watched all of them in a row last year, having only seen 3 of them, to impress a girl. And it did not impress her, but we went to go see Endgame together and had a nice time.
That's nice.
That's kind of a nice end.
What's
but
the moral of that story?
Sometimes you'll take on tasks that are destined to fail, but learn different things by the end.
And what did you learn by the end?
That some of the Marvel movies had
And that's it, folks. Tune in next week. Yeah. So this had a huge impact on Marvel films because it scared the CEO away from making any women-driven films for over a decade.
Yeah.
And that's so upsetting.
Yeah.
I looked into Daredevil, the film. Daredevil starring...
So I've heard about this movie because wasn't it famous for... It was rubbish, but then the director's cut came out. It was like 30 minutes longer, and people said that was a genuinely really good movie or something.
All the reviews seem to be kind of mixed about this.
Right.
Essentially, I read a couple of articles saying that Daredevil killed Ben Affleck. This is what I'm actually getting into.
Right.
So Daredevil was a film that was not very well received or mixed, had mixed reception. And Ben Affleck's career recovered from it, but Jennifer Garner's didn't.
Oh.
The only reason she did Elektra is because she was contractually obliged to do Elektra.
Right.
She didn't want to do it.
Oof.
Which is tragic.
Yeah.
As well.
That's not fun.
Yeah. So Ben Affleck's career was totally fine because he had already established himself with Good Will Hunting. He had like a 6-year career already behind him when he did Daredevil. But Jennifer Garner signed on to it and she just started and it kind of just collapsed her whole career.
Yeah.
She couldn't really rebuild herself after 2005. She never really got such a big lead role in a film ever again. But Daredevil, it didn't have very good reviews. It is the reason that Ben Affleck and Jennifer Garner met, which is nice.
Are they an item?
They were married.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Oh, they were married for like a decade, I think.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, they split up a couple years ago, but they were married and had kids and everything.
That's
but they met
cool.
on the set of Daredevil, and she kicked him in the head and made him unconscious.
Which
is nice. Yes. No. They were doing a fight sequence and she accidentally kicked him in the head and knocked him out, which I think is very romantic, and that's how I would like to meet the love of my life.
Well, so fellas or ladies, if you're getting ghosted, kick Abby in the head.
Just write into ratingdescending@gmail.com and let us know who's your favorite ghost.
Who's your favorite ghost? By the way, this is a real email, not a recurring bit.
Oh, is it really?
It's a real
We have an email?
Yeah, I told you. I set it up.
That was just a bit.
No, it's a real email. I want your favorite chew and your favorite fucking ghost. And I have that email on my email app.
I want your favorite ghost and also who you've been ghosted by. That is also a ghost. And were you watching Ghost at the time? So, write in.
We don't have enough listeners for this very specific scenario to have occurred to any of them.
Thank you, the 4 listeners that are listening right now and are never going to write into us. We love you.
Yeah, you'll probably just text us.
Yeah, just text us.
But you could email us at ratingdescending@gmail.com.
And then we'll ghost you. Daredevil was like a fun production. They met, they fell in love. Jennifer Garner was forced into doing Elektra. She didn't want to do it, but she gave it her all. And then her career completely shattered because it was such a commercial and critical failure.
Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, so that's some of the backstory around Elektra. And also, how much do you know about Daredevil?
I know he's blind.
Me too.
Matt Murdock, right?
Yeah.
He's blind.
Mm-hmm.
I know that he can fight people really good because he's blind, as all blind people can. He's a lawyer.
Is his
which
weapon
is also neat.
His stick?
His stick?
The blind stick.
Doesn't he genuinely sometimes have little sticks?
I have no idea.
I don't think he has. I don't think it's a walking stick.
No. He has radar sensors. That's the thing.
Right.
Yeah.
Did he have that before? Is he blind because like a super chemical?
Yeah.
And that's why he also has superpowers?
Yep.
Okay, right. Cool.
You've read it. You know enough about Marvel superheroes to guess that.
Yeah, that was me just guessing at superhero logic.
Yeah. He's also an orphan. Go figure. Another superhero trope.
Wow, I'm
ticked.
shocked.
Yeah, his dad gets like into a fight with someone and dies, and his dad was a single dad.
I
so
watched
he's an orphan.
2 episodes of the Daredevil TV show.
Yeah.
And they were both really good, and I had the full intention of continuing.
So, in terms of Elektra's backstory, right? Elektra she's in Daredevil. She's the daughter of Nicholas Nachios, and in Daredevil, he's framed for the murder of Nicholas Nachios. But the real murderer is Bullseye, and Bullseye is like the main villain of Daredevil.
Okay.
And Elektra thinks it's Daredevil. She goes to confront him to kill him.
Because
she knocks him out and then realizes that he's Matt Murdock, and she's like, oh my God. And she realizes he probably didn't kill her dad because of some other backstory.
Okay.
And so Bullseye is there.
Right.
And he has a fight with Elektra and he kills Elektra. So Bullseye is her murderer. That's the backstory.
Okay.
Yeah.
Bullseye is her. Right. Right. Yep. I'll cut out me doing that.
Now you have to leave it in. Sorry. I don't make the rules.
Yeah. Okay. So Bullseye, I don't know anything about Bullseye because in the show, I'm pretty sure it was Vincent D'Onofrio who played the same character as the villain in Into the Spider-Verse, which is fan-fucking-tastic. Such a good fucking movie. Holy shit. Not even like good for a Marvel movie like Ragnarok is, which is like, this is good for a Marvel movie, but it's still lower on my Waititi list.
Yeah.
But like, good movie. It was... What were you saying?
We're not... Okay, you and I know that you watched a bunch of Marvel films to impress a girl.
Every single one of them in a row within a week.
Which is nuts. That's commitment to someone that you are not committed to.
I watched more Marvel movies that year than all other movies combined.
I love your dedication.
Yeah.
I love... You're a romantic.
I didn't want to watch Endgame without knowing what the fuck was happening.
Honestly, fair enough. So we're not massive. I mean, like, you've watched it, but neither of us are massive Marvel people. So this was really weird to like dig my fingers into and be like, who the fuck is Elektra? What's her backstory? How did she end up where she is in the film?
Yeah.
And so that's why when you think about the story of Elektra, it's really weird that it starts with her just randomly getting revived.
Yes.
That's not in the comics.
I think it's
at all.
I thought it was very fucking funny that they decided to do a spin-off of a character who died in the movie.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's so weird. You know what that reminds me of? It reminds me of how in Reservoir Dogs, Michael Madsen's character, Vic Vega, is related to John Travolta's character in Pulp Fiction, and Tarantino wanted to make a sequel movie starring both of them, but then thought about it and thought about the fact that the actors were older and also both characters died.
I love how that's potentially the second problem that he encountered rather than the first.
In the interview I watched, he listed them in that order. Well, I guess, like, because they're older, you can't do a prequel.
So there you go. Yeah, no, it is just bizarre that this is a sequel film about a character that was killed off.
Well, because it starts with a Kung Fu Panda style paintbrush exposition of backstory.
And it's so funny because they fed us exposition and yet I didn't understand anything at all whatsoever. Who are we following? Where are we? What was the story that we just watched?
This is definitely classic comic book movie where you probably should have read the comics.
100%.
Because I feel like I was meant to implicitly know the relationships between a lot of the characters. In particular, the good general guys and the bad general guys.
Yeah.
Also, side note, just to touch on it lightly, this movie definitely did the thing where all of the villains and all of the good guys, except for the named good guys, were East Asian because it was an Asian fight. But then, yeah, all of the named good guy characters were white, and it was really weird.
Well, one of the bad guy characters is not Asian.
Oh, Tattoo
is a white boy. That's for
true.
Sure. And also Typhoid is not Asian either. She's a white woman.
Is she?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Also, I I never picked up in the movie that her name was Typhoid.
Yeah, she's based on Typhoid Mary, the DC comic book character, which is also based on a real-life murderer called Typhoid Mary, who was unknowingly spreading typhoid to people through her cooking.
Which is...
because she was a servant.
But it's such a weird choice to just then shorten it to Typhoid.
Yep, she's just Typhoid. Yeah. The characters were ridiculous. Like, I just want to talk about Tattoo for a second.
Oh, Tattoo. As you said when we watched it, his power got less interesting the more we watched it.
Yeah, Kurigi has a right-hand man called Tattoo, and his tattoos can come to life. He has like a tattoo of an eagle, and the eagle can come out of his chest and fly away and spy on people.
Well, the thing that I thought was really cool, right? Because when we first saw it, I was like, that's a cool idea, is that we see it as street art on the wall. It's a painting on the wall, and then it peels off to become a real eagle that then flies into his skin and becomes a tattoo.
Yeah.
That's cool. That was a really cool visual. That was a really exciting concept. And by the end of it, literally a flood of snakes is pouring out of his back, and it looks really stupid.
Yeah. His tattoo, it's like his whole skill became way worse as it went on.
It became dumber and dumber each time we saw it.
And Typhoid, as you pointed out, like, she's literally just a woman that can just kill people. She can just blow death onto them. And it's like everyone else's skills help to kill people. Hers is just death.
Yeah.
That seems lame.
It is kind of lame. It was both overpowered and underexplained.
Yes.
Also, Kurigi, this movie reminded me of like the Brandon Sanderson law of magic, which is like the more directly the magic impacts the hero's ability or inability to complete tasks, the more you need to explain it, right? That's why in things like Lord of the Rings, you can get away with it being very, very fluid, is that we understand everything that they have to overcome. Kurigi could do stuff in general, and I didn't understand what he could or couldn't do, and that really changed my perception of what I thought Elektra could possibly do to fight him.
Everyone's abilities and powers were so hazy in this film.
Yes.
Kurigi just seemed like a good sword master.
Yeah, but he could also sort of teleport.
Yeah.
He could move quickly.
Him and Elektra have a telekinesis meeting.
Yeah.
Being like, let's fight.
Well, so that was... Okay, wait. To rewind a bit, because I really wanted to talk about that. Because Elektra can see the future a little bit.
Yes.
She can have visions of the next 10 minutes.
Yeah.
And then can react accordingly.
Precognition.
Right. One time we normally see her do that by it being visualized in hyper contrasty black and white. And then one time we see her doing that, and she has a discussion with Kurigi, and I thought she was imagining a future discussion with Kurigi.
Exactly. That's why it was so confusing.
But then she does the thing, and I'm like, oh, so
they just had a telekinetic meeting.
Well, no, they had a future telekinetic meeting because...
Can they both do it though? We never see him being able to do it. But why would they be
But why would they use the same effect as the future thing if it's not...
He doesn't have that power.
Okay, so wait. So maybe the way it works is that it's not actually future sight. It's tapping into like a dream dimension that exists in the future, and Kurigi can also tap into that dream state world thing.
I have no idea.
I don't know.
What I love about this is that we go through and we write overviews, and sometimes I check plot synopsises to make sure I understood everything correctly, and 9 times out of 10 I didn't. And it's the movie's fault, not mine.
Yeah.
Because I will admit we were fairly drunk when we watched Elektra, but we were paying attention.
Oh yeah.
It still made no sense.
Yeah. Well, at the beginning, like we were talking about how this movie probably doesn't deserve to be on this list, but until about 40 minutes in, it does. Because it's nothing happens, but then everything that does happen is incomprehensible.
They set up all this childhood trauma for Elektra, being like, she's seen her mother being killed. It's really traumatic. Her dad was really strict on her, and she had a really lonely childhood. And then it all culminates in a battle inside of her house, and somehow that makes her reconcile her childhood trauma when she walks into a room and the little her is like, I'm not afraid anymore, and disappears.
That's right.
It's so silly. I mean, what I did like about this film is that Elektra and Abby have this really strong relationship.
Yeah.
It's kind of about mothers and daughters and mother figures and daughter figures, because they're not really mother and daughter. But Elektra and Abby are really interesting characters. They could have done something so good with that, and it was just a catastrophe.
It was. And I was so confused all throughout the beginning. You mentioned that the job was abnormally paid, which I'm pretty sure we find out it's because it's two targets. She's the best assassin in the world. I can't imagine a figure being abnormally high.
Yeah.
How high does it have to be?
I guess because it's the hand that's contracted her to do
it.
No.
Because it was Stick.
Yeah.
He did it so that she would do the right thing.
Because he knows that she's compassionate. Is this a test?
A pet peeve of mine is in stories where we find out that the inciting incident was actually caused by the mentor of the characters secretly.
To test them.
So dumb.
I loved the flashbacks because this film was full of flashbacks about how Elektra was revived and trained by Stick and then expelled by him, and then she became a contract killer. You have all this backstory really gradually throughout the film, which is terrible. And then in the backstory where she's expelled by Stick, he just tells her to leave. He's just like, you should leave. And she's like, I don't have anywhere to go. And then he looks at her and then she starts crying and putting her stuff away. And it's just so funny. It's so badly done. You're just laughing at her crying.
Yeah. I mean, there were some odd acting choices throughout this movie.
Yeah. Although, again, they had really good actors to work with. They had Terrence Stamp and Jennifer Garner next to each other. They're good. I really like Jennifer Garner.
I love Terrence Stamp.
Yeah.
I think
he's wonderful.
He's underused.
But yeah, and so all of these flashbacks are ridiculous. We get this silly backstory the entire way through. She meets Abby and Mark. She protects them. They have fight after fight after fight. Then they have a telekinetic meeting.
Yes.
And decide to fight it out in her childhood home.
Yeah.
And then she's no longer afraid. And she and Abby are super important to each other. And then she just walks out of their lives. That's the end. She abandons Abby.
Yeah.
Abby has formed this really strong bond with this mother figure, and she's like, okay, well, bye.
Also, does that mean Abby and Mark just live at Elektra's childhood home?
That's my question. What happens to Abby and Mark? What happens to Abby, the prodigy, the treasure?
Well, okay, important is that Typhoid, right at the end when she's confronting Abby, says, I used to be the treasure, and I don't want you to get it, or whatever the second half of that line is. But that made me go like, oh, wait, so there's multiple prodigy treasures, and also it doesn't seem to sway the balance that much. Like, if the hand can already have one treasure and it's still like a dead heat, like maybe they're fine. Maybe that's cool. Also, Abby being the treasure meant that she could fight good with a gold chain. Typhoid being the treasure meant that she could kill people with her breath. Like, these are not equivalent.
No. The treasure makes no sense. There's no consistency to the treasure.
It's also heavily implied in the opening cinematic that Elektra is the treasure, because they talk about, like, a motherless daughter and stuff. And, like, I feel like that was subtext that never paid off. You know what I mean? This movie's filled with that. It's subtext that doesn't actually go anywhere.
They were trying to build up a really strong emotional arc between Elektra, Abby, and Elektra's mum, that whole backstory.
Yeah.
They were trying to build up to something big there, but they just didn't land it.
I feel
they didn't even take off, really.
I feel like the problem is, like, they didn't know what it was going to mean at the end. They just thought it would be interesting if all of those things were connected.
Yeah.
So it means that you kind of end the movie and you're like, oh, I don't really know what that was for.
Yeah. Do you want to hear some trivia?
Yeah.
So there wasn't very much interesting trivia about this film. More than anything, my research just provided me with a kind of anger about the fact that female-led superhero movies were delayed for about a decade because of this film.
So bummer.
So just as a side piece of trivia that wasn't on IMDb but I found interesting, Elektra is meant to be Greek, which is fun. She's a Greek comic book hero.
That's cool.
I thought that was nice.
Oh, I guess the name Elektra would be Greek, right?
Yeah, well, Elektra Nachios.
It's got K's in it.
Yeah.
Has an Eos at the end.
It's just nice because she's not just another white comic book hero. She made her first appearance in 1981.
Yeah.
And Daredevil started in 1964. And it's just kind of rare to have, like, a superhero female that is also part of an immigrant family. I was like, that's sick. This is the one piece of good trivia that I have. While filming the Psy sword fight, Jennifer Garner accidentally got her knuckles sliced by the guy that plays Kurigi. He apologized. She got her knuckles, like, kind of bandaged up. And then they filmed again. He sliced her in exactly the same place. Which is fun.
That's cool.
There's one other piece of trivia that I found, which is that, and again, this wasn't in IMDb. I had to do different research to find this. This movie's failure was the reason that they cancelled the Daredevil sequel. This film was so bad that they cancelled the follow-up movie to Daredevil.
I mean, I feel like Daredevil didn't do well enough to deserve its own sequel.
They were planning one though. And then they were like, let's do an Elektra spinoff and then we'll do a Daredevil sequel. And this film flopped so badly, they gave up on the idea of a sequel. They just put it to bed. That
really proves that, like, the whole MCU could have happened before, or it could have not happened at all. Like, it only happened because Iron Man, Captain America, and Thor all made money. If it didn't, they probably wouldn't have done it.
Yeah. And just another note before the reviews is that it wasn't just Elektra that led to the fact that Marvel delayed females in lead roles for about 10 years. It was also the 2004 film Catwoman with Halle Berry. That also delayed it. The two back-to-back convinced the CEO to not touch it. And apparently there was this big email leak within Marvel a couple years ago. And they got through they went through the CEO's emails and he literally wrote a message being like,
oh, is this the...
Wait, so there was a Marvel email leak and the CEO, Ike Perlmutter, cited Elektra as an example of an unprofitable female-led superhero film. He wrote, a very, very bad idea, and the end result was very, very bad.
Good insight, bro.
Good one, Ike.
That's also crazy, though, because, like, apart from Spider-Man, there weren't good superhero movies in general.
Exactly.
Superman lost money. Batman lost money.
This is what I mean. Obviously, Elektra's a bad film, but they really sunk their claws into it and gave it these awful reviews to just further drive home the fact that females shouldn't be given lead roles. And this was only 15 years ago. Fuck that. Anyway, let's get to some silly reviews.
Yeah.
This is another thing that I noticed about Elektra. So the reviews, every time we go through them, there's obviously lots of bad reviews to go through. Elektra had more good ones than I've seen so far when I've done my research. It did receive largely negative reviews, and like the film holds an approval rating of 11% on Rotten Tomatoes. The consensus reads that Jennifer Garner inhabits her role with earnest gusto, but Elektra's tone-deaf script is too self-serious and bereft of intelligent dialogue to provide engaging thrills.
Agreed.
Yes.
I wished it had more fun.
Yeah. Film critic Scott Mendelson blamed the film for ruining Jennifer Garner's career and said it killed the notion of a female-led superhero film. I read the whole article that he posted as a review of the film, and it was really interesting because, again, it was a negative review, but he was saying, like, it wasn't fair.
Yeah.
This was a review from Joe Morgenstern from the Wall Street Journal. He said the movie's dominant visual tone is bronzed grunge, and its emotional tone is depressive. Megan Spencer from Triple J gave it a good review, saying, worth a look, full stop. Richard Roper, who was infamously the partner of Roger E. Burr, the business partner, not the life partner. Actually, I'm not sure about that.
He's not the life partner of Roger E. Burr.
We don't know.
I do know.
We'll literally never know. So
there's
it's not even worth
written
talking
record.
about. No. If only there was like this search engine that we could use to find out.
I wish he was more of a public figure because then we would have records.
Exactly. I wish he was more well known, you know? He's pretty underground. If you guys have heard of Roger Ebert. Richard Roper wrote, they should have just called this movie Contractually Obligated Sequel starring Jennifer Garner. Because I can see no other reason why someone as talented and as smart as she is would want to do this film. And this is my favorite review. You've inspired me. I've gone through IMDb's reviews. And I like finding good ones because it's nice to watch people enjoy these terrible bad films. This is a 10 out of 10 review. And it was left by Catafi Noomstar Quack. And the title of the review is My Comment on Elektra. When I first saw Daredevil, I was amazed of how well Jennifer Garner fought and stuff. She was also pretty in that movie. I love Daredevil, but most of all, I watched Elektra yesterday, and man, to me, that movie is the bomb. I loved it. When it's because I'm a huge fan of Jennifer Garner, and I would love to meet her someday. But I really liked the movie. If I watched it again, I would still love it. I don't think I would get tired of it, except the part where she gets kissed by the girl. I was kind of like, at first, but it makes sense. So yeah, everyone who has not seen Elektra, go see it! I don't know all about you guys, but I loved it, and I will always love it!
I want to frame that. That's my favorite review. review I've ever read in my life.
My favorite thing is that he spelt girl with a Y.
Also, like, the mild homophobia that he then accepts.
Yeah, it made sense, so it's fine. Apparently, the kiss between Typhoid and Elektra was, like, voted, like, hottest kiss of the year by some Kids' Choice Award TV show, award show.
Kids' award shows shouldn't have any category to do with sexual.
Yeah, I know. There's always best kiss, and then someone got slimed. That's how it went down.
Best kiss, someone gets slime, rate bad movies highly.
Yeah. You watch 14 different blonde people go up on stage to accept an award.
Yeah.
That's how it goes. I was a kid in 2005. I know the drill. But yeah, that's Elektra. It was, again, I found the research really interesting because I think it's shit film that got an even worse review.
This was kind of a different flavor of episode.
Yeah.
Because we weren't really talking about how it was batshit. We were talking about how you were just sort of like educating me on the history of it.
And this film is batshit, but it's not batshit enough in a lot of ways.
Yeah. Apart from the things that we did talk about, like the army of snakes coming out of Tattoo.
That was fun.
And
the fact that her sighs make people explode into green dust is pretty cool.
Oh, yeah. What was with her sigh?
I couldn't find out.
Okay.
Nothing. No information.
Okay, so they're not even like magic in the comic or anything? Or
I didn't do that much research because
Wow.
when I looked up Elektra's page, it was so long.
Yeah.
When I looked up Daredevils, it was so long. There was only so much information out that I could grab in that space of time.
That's fair.
Yeah. My rating of Elektra would be maybe not the 5.7. I think it's a solid. I can see it as a 5.3 on IMDb. What about you?
I don't know. Part of me wants to rate it above a 5, but part of me doesn't necessarily want to rate it higher than Jonah Hex or New Moon, both of which I found I had more fun watching. But do we reward fun or critical quality? I don't know. So I'm going to just meet in the middle and rate it a 4.5.
None of these things should be rewarded in any sense, in my opinion.
Well, I was saying the other day to someone, like, film is an industry where you actually aren't allowed to do mediocre. Because you can do mediocre at data entry or customer service or retail or whatever, but you can't make... We don't let mediocre movies get rewarded.
No. That's very true.
Yeah.
And again, yeah, it's a silly film. It's a very silly film.
But would I watch it again? No.
No, definitely not.
It's way too boring.
It is, exactly. It's dull. And it's just left an unfortunate impact.
Yeah.
For a lot of superhero films and for female-led stuff. That's Elektra. What are we doing next week?
Next week, we're doing 50 Shades Darker.
Ooh, are we?
Yeah, we are.
Oh, no.
Which is funny, because 50 Shades of Grey is even later in the list.
How exciting.
I know.
Sounds good. Catch you then.
Get ready to get horny.